Guys, Alex here. I have the Samsung Galaxy A72. In this video, I'll be reviewing this phone, talking about its specs. Is it worth it? You know, the battery, the screen and stuff like that, the screen refresh rate, you know, everything that this phone has to offer. And is it really worth it between this phone, the A71, the A52, and is there really a difference in which phone you get, if it's the A72 or the A52? But without further ado, let's get on into the video. Wait, this phone weighs 203 grams or 7.16 ounces, so a little bit, it weighs a little bit more than the A52 that we reviewed a couple of days ago, but really not by much. You definitely won't feel this phone in your pocket if you leave it in your pocket for a long time, but again, having a lot of weight on a phone also gives it that premium feel. That's why iPhones feel so much premium than Androids, because of the way they add behind their phones with the aluminum and the stainless steel frames and stuff like that. But this phone again feels super premium, even though it has a plastic back and a glass front. Now they don't specify Gorilla Glass, they have, so I'm just gonna say Gorilla Glass 5. Where I get my information for these phones, they don't specify, and they don't know which Gorilla Glass it has, so I'm just gonna say the same as the A52 Gorilla Glass 5. But yeah, plastic back, you know, glass front. The frames on the phone, I'm pretty sure they're aluminum or plastic, but they feel aluminum, at least for me. But the back doesn't really feel like plastic much, but you know, since it's matte, it feels more like aluminum than, you know, plastic, which is, I guess, is a plus. That way they don't spend as much on materials. And you know, the back feels really nice, super duper premium. Honestly, if you hand to me this phone over the S21, only thing I would really notice different is the camera module, because on the S21, since the camera module is bigger, there's that bump that comes off the display or the back that you guys saw when I reviewed the S21. It has a headphone jack right here on the bottom that you can use to, you know, listen to music. We have you know, 3.5mm. This is a 3.5mm headphone jack, so you can use the headphones that you have, the old ones, to connect it and, you know, just be just fine basically. But again, plastic back and a glass front. So this phone, like the A52, is IP67 dust and water resistant, up to 1 meter for 30 meters. So yeah, I haven't really seen waterproofing in you know, medium range phones. All I've seen is that you can leave it in the water, like when I did a water test on some Xiaomi mid-range phones, I would just leave them in there for 30 seconds, see if it would survive. But this one has IP67, so it can stay underwater for 1 meter for 30 minutes. So in case you drop it in the pool, and expect a water test by the way, but in case you drop it in the pool, you may be able to save this phone if it doesn't go below 1 meter, as long for 30 minutes. If you drop it in the sink and the sink is full of water, as long as you pick it within that 30-minute range, the phone should be fine. So yeah, just wanted to mention that it has IP67 dust and waterproof, something that mid-range phones really didn't have until now. I'm pretty sure it's the first one that I have seen that has IP67 waterproof. Like the Poco F2 Pro doesn't have waterproofing, since that one has a pop-up camera, and that one, like Xiaomi says, is supposed to be a mid-range phone, because by the time it came out, it was like $400 to $600. But yeah, this phone, point, because it has IP67 dust water resistant. So now the screen. So the screen on this A72 is a Super AMOLED 90Hz screen of 800 nits. So if you guys saw my A52 video, this screen from the A52 and the A72 is the same. Maybe a little bit, no, literally the same. 90Hz screen, Super AMOLED. It's like they basically copy pasted it onto a bigger frame, because the phone is 6.7 inches. It has the same brightness, the same refresh rate, and it's Super AMOLED. It's 107.8 centimeters, and it has an 84% screen to body ratio, and it has a 2.9 ratio as well, with a 394 ppi density, and it's 1080 by 2400 pixels. So the screen definitely doesn't look the best, same as the Poco F2 Pro, but you definitely won't notice that. And I really like the fact that it has 90 Hz on a mid-range phone. It has 90 Hz. That's something I really like. If you guys saw the video that my dad posted, I had a reason why I would want to switch this one over the Poco F2 Pro. Even though the Poco F2 Pro has a better processor, I feel like I, you know, really enjoy the 90 Hz display. Plus, I don't really play on my phone. I just text specs and watch videos, and 90 hertz, you know, wouldn't come in that bad. But it's really a shock to me that they added basically the same specs on it's supposed to be a higher, you know, model phone than the A52, but they added the same screen, 90 hertz, same brightness. They couldn't even change the resolution, which is, I don't know why they did that. I guess Samsung is getting lazy. I don't know, but hopefully they change it in the future. I know that the 5G version is definitely better, and that the 5G version you should get over the regular version, since the 5G version has an 120 hertz display. But I'm going to mention more of the specs later on, or when I actually get the 5G version, because this is just the regular version without 5G. It has a Snapdragon 720G and an Adreno 618. So don't get me wrong, it will definitely run your games, Call of Duty, Fortnite, Free Fire, basically all your games that you're probably gonna run on this phone. It'll definitely run there, yes, of course. But why would you get this phone over the A52 when the A52 is cheaper and basically gives the same specs? I don't know, but just know that the Snapdragon 720G, it's definitely a mediocre chip, but it can definitely run your games. Now keep in mind, while we were running Fortnite with this phone, it did lag a little bit, or as you guys saw, since it has the same chip on the A52, it does lag when you run Fortnite on medium graphics. But if you run Fortnite on low graphics, you should be fine, and you shouldn't have any lag spikes and your frames dropping. But yeah, that's pretty much the only issue I had. It ran Call of Duty just fine. I don't know, they've been super lazy lately, Samsung. They've only been really paying attention to their flagships. They basically just copy pasted a phone on a bigger frame. But I'm pretty sure this phone is just to get you to buy the 5G version, since the 5G version has better spec, has quite some RAM. So you can't go to 64 gigabytes of storage. You can only go 128 and up. So it has three modes: 128 gigabytes but with 6 gigabytes of RAM, and 128 gigabytes of storage with 8 gigabytes of RAM. And then they have 256 gigabytes of storage but with 8 gigabytes of RAM. So if I were you, I would just get the 128 gigabyte version with 8 gigabytes of RAM, because you get the same storage and it doesn't hurt to have that extra speed when it comes to RAM. But if you want a lot of storage, there's really no difference for you to get the 256 gigabyte version when you're really getting 8 gigabytes of RAM. Personally, I would get the 128 gigabyte version with 8 gigabytes of RAM if you're a person that doesn't really need that much space, or if you download, you know, apps like social media apps and stuff like that, maybe a couple of games, and 120 gigabytes will come in just fine, because it is genuinely cheaper when you buy a phone that has less storage. So I would opt for that option. But if you need a phone with a lot of storage, get the 256 gigabyte version. Just know that it won't come with 8 gigabytes of RAM or 12 gigabytes of RAM, since this is a mid-range phone and it basically has the same specs as the A52. Now the camera. So the main camera is a quad camera, you know, setup. It has a 64 megapixel camera, an 8 megapixel camera, a 12 megapixel, and a 5 megapixel camera. They added a telephoto and a macro camera. I guess it's just the norm now. Always add a telephoto and a macro, even though they're dog water. Whatever. But the 64 megapixel is a wide. The 12 megapixel is an ultra wide, the 8 megapixel is the telephoto I was talking about, and then the 5 megapixel is a macro camera. Know that the telephoto has a 3 times optical zoom, so you can definitely get deep and close to the objects that you really want to, you know, take a picture of, because they're generally, you know, better if you want to zoom in and stuff like that. I wouldn't recommend this. It's only 8 megapixels, and the only really two good cameras are the 64 megapixel camera and the 12 megapixel camera, because those have, of course, 12 megapixels and 64 megapixels. But if you want to, you know, zoom in really close up to something and use the telephoto or the macro camera, go ahead. Just know that those pictures, when you zoom in or, you know, take the pictures with those cameras, they're gonna come out to really low quality, because obviously 5 megapixels and 8 megapixels. So not definitely mediocre setup, but like I said, 64 megapixel main camera is probably going to be the camera that you're going to use mostly to take pictures of stuff. But in case you need to zoom in, it does have that telephoto and it does have that macro camera, which is, I guess, a plus, but sort of the same specs as the A52 64 megapixel camera. Again, as I'm showing images, the 64 megapixel camera is not that bad. It definitely takes the pictures just fine. The problem that I have is that when you zoom in, it really lowers the quality. But I guess it's fine for your mid-range phone that has this price. Now, a plus is that it has panorama and HDR, and it can shoot at 4K but 30 FPS. So it's, you sacrifice looks or frames, or you want frames over looks. So if you want 4K video but with low frames, then shoot at 4K, but just keep in mind you're gonna have 30 frames. But if you want 1080p video but you want 60 frames or more than 60 frames, then just use the 1080p video. Again, I would personally use 4K because videos that you're filming with this one are usually not fast, and 30 FPS is usually fine, but you really won't get to see the pictures that you take or videos that you take in 4K, since you need a 4K TV or a 4K monitor to actually see those pictures that you took and the overall quality that it has. So nice feature that it has 4K, but keep in mind you're going to need a 4K, output like a TV or a monitor to actually use it. But yeah, just keep that in mind. And now the selfie camera is a 32 megapixels wide camera. So basically half of the main back camera is 32 megapixels. So it definitely looks really nice when I'm taking selfies and stuff like that. Doesn't look bad at all on this phone. And I like that cameras are going up this high when it comes to the selfie camera, because a lot of people take selfies, and that's another plus, at least in my opinion, when it comes to the social media aspect and why you would use this phone for social media. So 32 megapixels main camera doesn't look bad at all, as I'm showing images on top of me talking. That camera also has 4K 30 FPS, and it does also shoot at HDR, so you can definitely record yourself in 4K 30 FPS. Like I said, you're going to need a 4K monitor or 4K TV to actually see the full quality of that video. So I do recommend just shooting at 1080p if you're going to upload it to Instagram, since that's the max quality Instagram allows you to record at and upload at. But if you're just shooting for a home video that you're gonna show on your TV, then do 4K or any personal projects. But that's a plus, that you can shoot at 4K 30 FPS. Like I said at the beginning of the video, it does have a 3.5mm headphone jack, and the speakers are stereo speakers, something that we generally don't see in mid-range phones, since they're of course mid-range. A lot of companies focus their speakers on the flagships and add the more quality to the flagships. But now that they have a stereo speaker, like I said in my A52 review, the stereo speakers are not bad at all. Like I said, they're really nice. Now let me show you guys what this A72 sounds like with the stereo speakers. Keep in mind you probably won't be able to hear the stereo since it's not in person, but you guys will have a sort of representation of what it's going to sound like. Now this is at 100% volume, and yeah, let me play the song. So not bad at all. Now keep in mind when you're watching a movie up close, you will hear the speaker girl or the top speaker girl, sounding for your left ear, and then the bottom speaker for your right ear. So that's basically what's sort of how stereo works, and it's not bad at all. Keep in mind results may be different when you're actually in person, so what you just heard may not be what you hear when you actually get the phone. It may be different when you get the phone, because it's going to be way better since it's in person. So what you just heard may not be what you're going to hear. What you're going to hear is probably going to be better in person, and you're going to just hear the overall quality. But yeah, that was the sound test. Now, this phone also has Bluetooth 5.0 and a USB Type-C. And of course, obviously, it comes in the box USB Type-C, because why wouldn't it? And it, like I said, 3.5mm headphone jack. And the battery is a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. That's basically the only difference I see between this phone and the A52. The battery. The A52 has a 4,500 milliamp hour battery, while the A72 has a 5,000 milliamp non-removable battery. But other than that, the fast charging is 25 watts as well. Definitely doesn't hurt to have it. But yeah, those are basically all the specs for this phone. Definitely not bad. Not a bad phone. It's basically a carbon copy of the A52, but maybe the 5G will bring something spectacular about this phone when we do get the 5G. But right here, this is the regular A72. But yeah, those are basically all the specs. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave a like, subscribe. Let me know if would you guys get this A72 over the A52, or is it just a carbon copy and I should just save some money on getting the A52. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a like, subscribe, and yeah, peace out.